Good evening, guys. Today we're going to start with chapter 5, which is talking about designing documents, slides, and screens. So let's get started with learning objectives. First, we're going to talk about apply strategies for paper page design. Then we're going to talk about strategies for presentation slide design. Thirdly, we're going to talk about web page design and design test. Then we're gonna talk about computer use and design. Finally, we're gonna talk about how to recognize questions about design while writing. So now we will talk about good document design. There are some specifications about good document design: saving time and money, reduces legal problems, builds goodwill, looks inviting, friendly and easy to read. يكون سهل في الموضوع القراءة, friendly للreaders, enhances your credibility, builds an image of you as a professional and competent. So about guidelines for creating effective paper documents are well supported with research and practice. Much less research has been done on effective slides and screen. Moreover, as the population in general becomes more experienced in seeing presentation slides and using the web, what works may change. Pay attention to the documents, slides, screen you see, and the responses they get from other people in your organization, that you can keep up with evolving standards. In particular, changes to social media like Facebook require users to stay current even if fonts and layout change. However, the principle of good design described in the module should still apply. Okay, so we have this question in front of us: how should I design paper pages? Okay, how should I design paper pages? You have to follow these 5 guidelines. So use the following guidelines to create visual attractive document. يعني في عندنا هدف أساسي اللي هو create attractive document for readers. So use white space for separation and emphasize, use headings to group points, limit the use of words set in all caps, I mean caps letter or capital letter, use no more than 2 fonts, decide whether to justify margins based on the situation and the audience. Okay. Now we will move to the next point, which is use white space. White space, or the empty space on the page, make material easier to read by emphasizing the material that separates from the rest of the text. So to create white space, we have to follow these points. Use headings, use a mix of paragraph length, use lists. Okay, when we talk about lists, we have to focus more on using tabs or indents, not spacing to align items vertically. Use number list when the number or sequence of items is exact. Use bullets, large dots or squares like those in this list when the number and sequence, it doesn't matter. Okay. So now let's move to the next slide, which is talking about using heading. Okay. Headings are words or short phrases that group point and divide your letter, memo, or report into sections. يعني أنا بحاول إنه في الهيدنجز لما أجي أعمل report معين or document معين، إنه اللتر تبعتي لازم أعملها divided أو أقسمها لأكثر من headings. طيب لهيك لازم يكون في عندي أكثر من section. Make headings specific. Make each heading cover all the material until the next heading. هاي نقطة مهمة جدا. Keep headings at any one level parallel all nouns, all complete sentence, or all questions. يعني بدي احاول انه كل الوردز اللي انا بدي استخدمها في اللتر، يعني بدي احاول انه كل الهيدنجز اللي بدها تكون موجوده عندي في اللترز في اي مستوى، يعني it should be parallel with all names، كل الاسامي، with all complete sentence، مع كل الجمل الكامله او كل الكويشنز، كل ايش، كل الاسئله. اوكي. يعني خلينا نحكي بالletter or بالميمو type main headings even with the left hand margin in bold. Capitalize the first letters of the first word and other major words. Use lowercase for all other letters. For example, in single space text, for example, or triple space, okay, between the previous text and the headings, double space between the headings and the text that follows. Okay. الآن يعني في عندي بالسلايد الموجود أمامي هون، اوكي، مثلا هون بعطيك examples of different fonts، وبدك تنتبه لنقطة مهمة جدا إنه يكون الفونت easy to read، يعني you have to be aware about this point. Okay. Okay. Let's move to the next slide اللي هو using headings. وأنا في عندي I have some notes about this document. Okay. Let's take a deep look for the title. Okay. شو بحكي لك هون انه for capital letters make title hard to read، يعني لما تكون التايتل كامله مكتوبه بالكابيتال letter بتشوف مرات it's not easy to read, so you have to aware about this point. Okay, let's move to the paragraph. For example, if the paragraph is too long, okay, هذا الشيء طبعا مش محبب يعني في هذا الموضوع، تمام. uninviting. Okay. Important information is hard to find, especially when you're writing some documents or scientific documents or research paper. You have to be aware about your accurate information. Must be easy to find. Must be easy to find. Okay. Choice of margin. The slide is talking about choice of margin. Okay. So decide whether to justify margin based on the situation and the audience. So computers allow you to use full justification, so that type on both sides of the pages is evenly lined up. The paragraph justifies margins. Margins that are justified only on the left are sometimes called ragged right margins. So lines end in different places because words are of different length. So use justified margins when can use proportional typefaces. Want a more formal look. Want to use as a few pages as possible. Write to skilled reader. Okay. الآن بالنسبة للجustify margin, let's move to ragged margin. العكس تماما. Don't have proportional typefaces. Want a less formal look. مش لازم تكون رسمية، لا بالأقل. Okay. Want to revise one page without reprinting all. Use very short line length. So we have to, it's like a comparison here between justified margins and ragged margins. So let's say that justified margin is focusing more on proportional typefaces, more formal look, use a few pages as possible, not too much, and write to skilled reader. يعني الaudience أو التارجت تبعه راح يكون skilled reader. But when we talk about ragged margins, don't have proportional typefaces. على عكس تماما, less formal look, okay, and very short line lengths. Okay. How should I design presentation slides? How should I design presentation slides? Okay. Keep slides simple, relevant, and interesting. يعني لازم تركز إنه your slides must be simple, relevant, and interesting. As you design slides for PowerPoint and other presentation program, keep these guidelines in mind. يعني لما بدك تعمل design على الPowerPoint, you have to focus more about these points. لازم يكونوا simple, relevant and interesting. مشان يكونوا simple and relevant and interesting لازم تعمل بالنقاط الآتية. Use a big font. هاي نقطة مهمة جدا. Use a bullet point phrases. Use clear, concise language and appropriate clip art. خلي الكلام مختصر. Make only 3 or to 5 points per slide. يعني خلينا نحكي هاي عبارة عن advices. You have to follow it to make your design simple, relevant and interesting. Okay. Customize your slides with a company logo, charts and scan in photos and drawing. Okay. فالنقاط خلينا نحكي الواحد 2 3 4 5 points is very important. You have to keep it in your mind during your design presentation. Make it your slide simple, relevant and interesting. Okay. Use clip art only if the art is really appropriate to your points and only if you are able to find, okay, images. Now let's move to the other slide, which is also as important, talking about effective and ineffective colors for presentation slides. So we have two types of presentation slides, effective and ineffective. Okay. Let's say that choose a light background, okay, if the light will be off during the presentation, and a dark background if the lights will be on. يعني انت عم تعمل presentation, okay, so you have to focus about the lights. إذا lights on لازم الباك تكون dark والعكس ايش؟ والعكس تماما. So slides wherever will be easier to read if you use high contrast between the words and background. هاي مهمة جدا يعني النقطة هاي. Okay. How should I design web pages? How should I design web pages? Okay. Let's say that good web pages have both good content and interesting design. يعني إن شاء الله أحكي إنه الويب بيج الأمامي good. Okay. الcontent must be good. والديزاين must be interesting. يعني انا كريدر بفتح على ويب بيج معين لازم تكون الكونتنت عندي مهم جدا، يكون في عندي محتوى مفيد جيد الناس تقرأه تستفيد منه الريدرز، ولازم يكون الديزاين برضه attractive interesting. يعني you should be able to evaluate the design of web page even if you never create one from scratch. You should be able to evaluate the design even if you never created from the scratch. Okay, the opening screen is crucial. Not only must the first screen open quickly, but it also must contain the information visitors need to quickly find what they are looking for. Why some studies shows that users grow impatient after waiting 15 seconds for a page to load. Okay, يعني انت لما مثلا تفوت على ويب بيج معينه وتستنى more than 15 seconds ممكن تعمل close لهاي البيج او تكون مثلا disadvantage for this page. Okay, so to keep visitors around long enough to find and buy what they want, make using the first screen extremely easy. Again, to keep visitors around and long enough to find and what they want to buy, for example, make using the first screen extremely easy. Okay, مشان تكون extremely easy, أول point provide an introductory statement orienting the serving reader to the organization. Okay, the next point offer an overview of the content of your pages with links to take readers to the part that interesting them. For example, ممكن تحط بعض اللينكات. include information that will be most interesting and useful to most reader. يعني انت تخيل حالك يعني محل الريدر، اهم شيء انه يكون الكونتنت مفيد جيد، الديزاين تبعه يكون interesting and attractive، تحط بعض اللينكات اللي ممكن تختصر على الريدر الوصول للمعلومة اللي هو حاب انه يوصلها او easy to find it. هاي مهمة جدا. اوكي. Use small graphics, keep animation to a minimum. Okay. The rest of the page can contain information that only a limited number of reader will want. فانت حط اللينكات وحاول تكون الانيميشن خلينا نحكي بالمينيمم ليفل. تمام. الجرافيكس والانيميشن. شو بحكي لك هون. If your web pages include music or sound effects whatever music شو طبيعتها sound effects, put an off button easily. يعني لازم بسرعة تكون عملية الوصول للميوزك اوف، يعني يكون في عندي زر اني اعمل اوف للميوزك بكل سهولة. يعني easy to find it and easy to do it. okay. لسه مكملين في بعض البوينتس اللي هي about designing web pages. Include a skip intro button if you have an animated introduction pages. اوكي انت مرات بتفوت على بيج معينه، ويب بيج معينه لشركه لمؤسسه وات ايفر يعني، او متجر الكتروني، بكون عامل لك انيميشن انتروداكشن، انت ممكن تعملها سكيب، فلازم البوتن هذا يكون موجود. انا ممكن مش حابب اني احضر، او لا تجبرني اني انا ككاستمر او كفيزيتور تو يور ويب بيج اني احضر هذا الانيميشن، فاعطيني اوبشن اني ممكن اني اعمل له كلوز. provide a visual variety. okay. ممكن انت تستخدم bullets or number list headings. unify. Yeah. The last point unify or not the last. نقطة ما قبل الأخيرة unify multiple pages with a smaller banner or graphic or label so surface know who sponsors each pages. يعني بيكون عندك multiple pages، حاول تستخدم بعض البانرز الجرافيك الليبلز وات ايفر مشان نعرف مثلا مين ممكن يكون سبونسر لهذا البيج. اوكي. On each page provide link to the home page. طب انت ممكن تدخل على صفحة واللي بعدها واللي بعدها وحبيت ترجع للمين page, so you have to put a link to the home page in each page. The name, email address of the person who maintained the page, the date when the page was last revised, and so on. Okay. So this is, let's say, the main points about how to design a web page in a proper way. Okay. Let's move to the next slide. How do I know whether my design works? Okay, test it بكل سهولة. انت كيف بدك تعرف انه الديزاين تبعك شغال؟ You have to test it. So a design that looks pretty may or may not work for the audience. To know whether your design is functional, test it with your audience. صح ولا لا؟ بالبداية انت مشان تعرف انه your design is functional test. Okay, you have to test it with your audience. Okay, watch someone as he or she uses the document to do a task. Ask the reader to describe the thoughts process after completing the document and the task. Okay, خلينا نحكي watch someone as he or she uses the document to do a task. Okay, where let's say or let's ask these questions. Where does the reader pause, reread, or seem confused? And when? How long does it take? المدة كم? Does the document enable the reader to complete the task accurately? Okay, so about the last point, ask the reader to describe the thought process after completing the document and the task. Okay, so let's say ask the reader to think aloud while completing the task. Interrupt the reader at key points to ask what he or she is thinking, or ask the reader to describe the thought process. Okay, so learning the reader thoughts process is important, since a reader may get the right answer for the wrong reasons. Okay, So in such cases, the design still needs work. Okay. لسه مكملين بنفس التايتل اللي هو how do I know whether my design works. Okay. Test the document with people who are most likely to have trouble with it. To have trouble with it. ممكن يكونوا مثلا let's say for example very old or young readers. لازم انت تعرف الاودينس. ممكن من خلال في مشكله في عمليه الكوميونيكيشن والدوكيومنتس ممكن عملت لهم مشاكل، فبالتالي خلينا نحكي الاودينس very old ولا young readers, people with little education ممكن or who read English. الانجليش بالنسبه له is a second language for example. So these points you have to be aware about it. Okay, ask reader. The last point is very important. Focus with me, please. Ask readers to put a plus sign in the margin by any part of the document, okay, they like or agree, and minus sign by any part that seems confusing or wrong. So at this point, you have to ask your reader to put plus or minus. Plus means they agree or they like the document. Minus means they disagree or confusing about any part of your document. Okay. Now we're gonna talk about using computers to create good design. Okay. Different versions of word processor handle command differently. So choose a business-like font size, for example, 11 or 12 point type. Let's say Times Romans, Arial, for example, are the most commonly used business fonts. Okay. Use bold headings. Okay. So use bold headings. Avoid having headings all by itself at the bottom of the page. يعني انت لازم تركز انك تتجنب عناوين مثلا تكون موجوده وما في اي فقرات تتبع الهيدنجز هاي، فبالتالي هنا راح تسبب لك ايش مشكله. لهيك بحكي لك avoid having a headings all by itself at the bottom of the page. Okay. Change your tab settings to create good visual impact. To save paper, use print preview to see the document final appearance. Okay, now let's move to the final part of this lecture, which is talking about, or the question is, when should I think about design? When should I think about design? At each stage of the writing process. طبعا it's a logic answer, right? At each stage of the writing process, you have to think about your design. As you plan, think about your audience. As you write, incorporate lists and headings. Get feedback from people who will be using your document. As you revise, check your draft against the guidelines in the module. Okay, so at each stage, you have to focus on your design. When you plan, when you write, when you get feedback, and when you revise. And finally, at this slide, there are some links, particularly the second one here. If you test this link, you can find some, let's say, as I said, the second link web page, that's SAC, means if you surf this website, you're gonna find some examples about the worst websites. Okay, you can get some ideas how they do mistakes with the designing the websites and the content of the websites in general. Okay, so now just I need to make a so let's make a revision of what we talked today in this chapter. Okay, we have started with the learning objectives, and then we talked about good document design and you have to focus about these points: saving time, money, goodwill, enhancing your credibility, builds an image of you as a professional and competent. Then we talked about how should I design paper pages, okay, from these points. Then we talked about use white space and the benefits you get from this white space. Then we talked about use headings. We explain some examples about different fonts and this paragraph to explain where is the mistakes here. Okay, then we talked about choice of margins, justify margins or rigged margins. Then we talked about how should I design presentation slides. Okay, then we made a comparison between effective and ineffective colors for presentation slides to make it easy to read. Okay, so you have to focus more about contrast between the words and background. Then we talked about how should I design web pages from these points. Then how should I know whether my design works? So to know the shortest way or the simplest way to know whether your design is functionally, you have to test it with your audience. Okay. Then we talked about using computers to create good design, and finally the last slides talked about when should I think about design, as we said, at each stage. Okay, this is a logic answer. At each stage of the writing process, you have to focus about your plan, write, get feedback from people, and finally when you revise your document. I hope that I explained everything in this chapter in simple way, so good luck.